Why is there a kid flying an airliner? Aeroflot Flight 593 was a scheduled passenger flight from Moscow's Sheremetyevo Airport to Kai Tak in Hong Kong. The aircraft being used on the fateful day of the 23rd of March 1944 was an Airbus A310 registered as FOGQS. Boarding the aircraft were 63 passengers and 12 crew members. Most passengers were family members of airline's employees or the employees of the actual airline. The rest were businessmen from Hong Kong and Taiwan looking for opportunities in Russia. In the cockpit was Captain Andrei Viktorovich Danielov, who was 40 and had over 9,500 flight hours with 950 on the A310. Beside him was 33-year-old First Officer Igor Vasilievich Piskarov, who had 6,855 flight hours with 440 on the A310. Rounding out the crew was 39-year-old relief captain called Captain Yaroslav Vladimirovich Kudinsky, who had around 8,940 flight hours with 907 on the A310. He was the most experienced of the crew. There will be 2 other people who enter and fly the airplane, and one of them was going to doom the entire plane. At midnight, the plane took off from Moscow and was on its route as scheduled. At its cruising altitude when the plane was flying over Russia, around 421 kilometers or 227 nautical miles from China, the relief first officer decided to break regulations. His wife and 2 children were on board as passengers, but Kudinsky, at 12:41 a.m. local time, the first to fly, was his 13-year-old daughter called Yana. The pilots wanted to create the illusion that they were flying by having the autopilot on and just turning the heading knob to make it seem like they were flying. After the daughter was satisfied, the 15-year-old son, Elder, sat at the controls at 12:51 a.m. He started the problems when he pushed the control column so hard it contradicted the autopilot. Just 4 minutes later, Elder managed to make the plane switch to manual control for only ailerons. An indicator was on, but the crew failed to realize it, as they were expecting an audible alarm just like Soviet aircraft. Elder realized that the plane was banking right and mentioned it to the crew, and the crew realized the flight computer had predicted a holding pattern for the plane due to the continuous right turn. This greatly confused the crew, until 9 seconds later disaster struck. The bank angle went from 45 degrees to 90 degrees and the plane started diving. The G-forces did not allow any of the crew to get the control column, and then the autopilot pitched up the plane and it stalled. After this, the autopilot disengaged and the flight computers pushed down the nose, letting the captain and the relief first officer to take control. They managed to pull out the dive, but sadly they overcorrected, and the plane pitched up almost vertically. Kudinsky almost recovered the plane, but once again overcorrected. The spin, which the plane was put into, and the aircraft was then put into a flat spin. As the crew finally leveled off the wings and had control, the plane was too low and crashed at a flat angle near the town of Mezdorensk. On a hill, all on board died. The cause of this accident was found to be the first officer letting an outsider, his children, in the aircraft, who then turned off the autopilot, the crew's failure to notice the right bank, Airbus not having an appropriate alarm for partial autopilot disconnect, and the overcorrection of the aircraft by the crew. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.